I'm here today in the Saxon Gardens at the heart of Warsaw. Since 1727, a public garden, one of the first in Europe. But it started life as something more, the garden of a palace built by the first Saxon king of Poland, Augustus II. A member of the Wettin dynasty from Saxony became kings of Poland. Why were they here? What were they doing? Why did they build this palace? And what is more, what is the Saxon axis? An exercise in urban planning. Join me in Poland Daily History today when we find out more. So Piotr, here we have a model of the Saxon Palace after the 19th century remodeling.
Yes, exactly. Originally Saxon Palace was built here, of course, in early 18th century by August II, so one of the Wettins, which was the baroque palace, modeled after Dresden Palace, which was even earlier palace in a baroque style. But later on, in 19th century, actually it went to different hands actually, in early 19th century. And after November uprising in 1830 and 31, actually it was partially damaged, and it went to the city and state authorities, and actually they decided to remodel it, so to open it, to connect the Saxon Square and the Saxon Garden, which was behind. So they modeled the colonnade that we can see and two monumental wings on the both sides to make it possible to go through in between the square and the garden, which was behind.
I mean, this colonnade is fantastic, or it was fantastic until it was destroyed, of course. And we can see there, which obviously dates from I think 1925, the tomb of the unknown soldier. The three arches there, the only bit of the palace which currently survives, in fact.
Yes. So it was modeled here in 1925 as a commemoration of all the heroes who fought for the Polish freedom. So monuments, many of this kind of monuments were built, of course, in Europe and all over after World War I to commemorate all the fighters. And they picked up the Saski Square and actually Saski Palace to put the monument here, because it used to be actually for over 200 years already the square where all the following regimes were showing themselves to the people of Warsaw.
A main centre of Warsaw for sort of ceremonial occasions.
Yeah.
And on this great, as we mentioned earlier, this great originally as envisaged by Augustus II, the great Saxon axis, which was going to go from the Vistula all the way to the west, of which this was a key part. Fantastic, really, and very marvellous. This huge. I really get a sense on the model, which of course we couldn't see actually out on the square. The sense of the size of this palace, quite magnificent, really.
Yeah. So of course the baroque palace, which used to stand here before, was a bit lower and smaller. So this monumental size is actually a size of the reshaping in 1830s and 40s by Idzikowski, the famous architect of the mid-19th century in Warsaw, who decided to reshape the building in this more monumental classicist style. So you can see those pillars which are going all around the building actually. and that building is completely symmetrical. So it goes on the both sides symmetrically on the both parts of the axis, and something which became the main landmark of the city already in 19th century was this columnate. So that was monumental style, and until today, actually, most of the architects they say that the most important part of this building was the columnate, actually.
And it is, it must have been, to have been able to see it in real life, must have been magnificent, because even on the model, it looks quite magnificent. I mean, there's something about these Corinthian-topped columns, which wherever you see them in the world, they're very spectacular. But to see so many here in this building, as it was until the Second World War ended, absolutely magnificent. And it would be lovely to think that somebody one day might be able to rebuild it.
Yeah, but something which is very important if we talk about this columnate, actually, it's not only that it's monumental and beautiful, but it was useful as well. Yeah, because back in times, the baroque palace was like the main purpose of the palace was exactly at this point, at this place where we have the columnate. So you cannot walk through in between the square and the garden which was behind. And here it was opening also the view of the Saxon axis, the trees which were behind the columnate, and it was possible to connect in those two.
Yes, I think
parts.
from an architectural point of view, it's very bad. If you have an axis that you can't actually walk along, you lose part of the effect of the grandeur, the symmetry of the buildings either side, the gardens on the far side. And so I can see that actually that probably, as much as I enjoy Baroque architecture, this probably was a slight improvement, architecturally speaking, to give you that possibility, that sense of movement and flow, which I think is so good with these buildings.
Already the authorities knew about it in 1930s, so one of the requirements to the architect who will design this building was to actually think about it, to have to make the columnate actually, and to have an open access to the garden, which became one of the gates of the 19th century Saxon
because the gardens had been public since I think about 1727, probably one of the earliest public.
Yeah, actually it was the oldest public garden that we have in Warsaw, and actually in the whole Polish-Lithuanian kingdom. All the gardens before, they were rather the nobles' gardens or the royal gardens, and August II already decided to open the garden to the people of Warsaw. And in 19th century, it opened even more with those gates around, and with the access from both sides of the garden, from the east and from the west.
I mean, when you think about these grand axes, of course, there's a great one we can see today in Paris, where you stand outside the Louvre and you can look all the way up through the Arc de Triomphe, and on a clear day to La Défense. Again, this idea of this monumental axis, very important, I think, in sort of architecture.
And they thought about it already in 18th century, and even more in 19th century, because after Saxon kings actually left Warsaw, and the palace went to different hands. Actually, they dismantled some of the buildings that we're gonna see today, probably as well in the miniatures. So to open the view. So actually, in mid-19th century, when you were entering the city center from Chłodna Street, from the western part, already from the soldier barracks area, you can see the open access through the garden and the palace at the end.